So, let's pull back the curtain on one of the most powerful brands in education, the IITs. Now, we're not here to talk about the genius. We all know about that. We're going to explore the flip side, the common blind spots that, funny enough, are often a direct result of the very system that makes these minds so brilliant in the first place. This quote, it really hits the nail on the head. IITians are trained to be the world's best problem solvers. But what happens when a problem can't be neatly plugged into a formula? What do you do with messy things like human emotion or just the chaos of the market? That's the real tension we're digging into today. All right, first things first. To really get a handle on these blind spots, we have to understand the myth itself. I mean, what does it actually mean to be an IITian? So, in our collective imagination, an IITian is kind of like a superhero of the mind, right? They're this archetype of a brilliant person forged in the fire of one of the toughest academic competitions on the entire planet. They're seen as the absolute peak of analytical thinking, somebody who can take apart any problem you throw at them. See, at its very core, their training is all about one thing. Take any complex problem and break it down into a logical, step-by-step, almost mathematical process. Now, this doesn't just build skills, it actually shapes their whole way of seeing the world. Every challenge starts to look like a system that just needs to be optimized. But what happens when that super powerful, logical way of thinking slams into the messy, fuzzy, and often illogical world of human beings? Well, this is where we start to see the first cracks appear. And you end up with these two very different toolkits. On one side, you've got the superpowers, the mathematical genius, the logic-driven analysis, the intense theoretical knowledge. But on the other side, you start to see these gaps in things the real world demands, like emotional intelligence, people skills, and just that gut feeling for business. And those gaps, they pop up as some very specific hurdles in communication. I mean, when your brain is wired for maximum complexity, trying to simplify things for someone else can be a real struggle. You might get super frustrated in a brainstorming session where ideas are just flying around with no logical order. And this is so important. It's not intentional arrogance. A lot of the time, it's just a fundamental mismatch in communication styles. This blind spot carries right on over into the world of business. The training is so theoretical that there's often this initial gap in really understanding what a customer wants or the messy day-to-day realities of managing a team. It's actually a big reason why so many grads go right into consulting or get an MBA. They're trying to fill that gap. But these aren't just learned skills we're talking about. These traits are forged over years of almost unimaginable pressure. And that kind of pressure, well, it can leave behind some pretty deep psychological scars. And this is huge. Just try to imagine it. You spend your entire youth preparing for an exam with a selection rate under 2%. When you finally make it, winning isn't just a good feeling, it becomes your entire identity. And the flip side of that incredible high is a deep, deep fear of what happens when you're not perfect anymore. And that fear of failure isn't some abstract idea. It has very real consequences. It's what leads to that perfectionism, to overthinking every single little decision. It can make someone hesitate to take a risk on a startup or a creative career, paths that aren't proven. The anxiety about making a single mistake can be totally paralyzing. This basically creates a 4-step recipe for burnout. Step 1, years of intense academic pressure. That trains your brain to never, ever switch off. Step 2, you find you can't relax. Step 3, you start to feel guilty anytime you're not being productive. And step 4, well, that's a fast track to complete and total exhaustion. And this is where it gets really personal. That IITian label, it's not just a thing on a resume. For a lot of people, it becomes a core piece of their identity. This can build an ego that's tough against criticism, sure, but it also creates this deep insecurity about living up to the massive expectations that come with that tag. So, this intense focus on individual achievement, on your rank, on being number one, it has another major side effect, and this one really impacts how you interact with the world around you. The whole IIT system is built on a foundation of competition. You are constantly being ranked against your peers. But what happens when you take that mindset out into the real world? A world where collaboration is often the only way to succeed. Well, you get a competitive mindset that can become really unhealthy. Colleagues start to look like rivals, not collaborators. There's that constant nagging comparison of salaries and titles. Every discussion feels like an argument that has to be won. The same drive that gets you through IIT can become a real liability in a team.
And finally, you've got the bubble effect. Because most students come from a pretty similar academically driven background, there's not a lot of exposure to different kinds of people, different ways of thinking. So when they step out into the incredible diversity of the real world, it can be a genuine shock to the system.
Now, it's absolutely crucial to get this right. These aren't character flaws. They are the predictable side effects of an incredibly demanding, highly specialized system. They're just two sides of the same coin. You really can't forge that kind of analytical genius without also creating the perfect conditions for these blind spots. And all of this leaves us with a much bigger question, one that goes way beyond just the IITs. For any elite institution, what's the real goal? Is it to build well-rounded people, or is it to build a powerful brand, even if that brand comes at a personal cost to the very individuals who have to carry it? It's definitely something to think about.